All right, here we go with our next panel of amazing authors. We're going to begin with Jedah Mayberry. He was raised in southeastern Connecticut, the backdrop for his fiction debut. The unheralded king of Preston Plains Middle won grand prize in Red City Review's 2015 Book Awards and was named first in multicultural fiction for 2014 by the Texas Association of Authors. In 2018, he completed a Hurston Wright Foundation workshop in fiction, used in part to revise the manuscript that resulted in his second book, Sun is Sky, due in 2020. His work has appeared at Linden Avenue, Brittle Paper, Black Elephant, Akashic, Fry, Sci-Fi Series, and A Gathering Together. Jedah resides with his wife and daughters in Austin, Texas. Let's welcome Jedah Mayberry.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Jennifer Hritz. Jennifer is the author of two novels, The Crossing and I Too Have Suffered in the Garden. Winner of the Chris O'Malley Fiction Prize, she holds an MA in Literature and Language, as well as a PhD in American Literature. Themes of memory, psychological trauma, and betrayal fill her fiction, including her forthcoming novel, Smoke and Glass. Her short story, The Killing Jar, was recently named first runner-up for the Los Angeles Review Short Fiction Award and was published in February. She lives in Austin, where she writes and teaches creative writing workshop for girls. Girl power. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Also, please welcome Ursula Pike. Ursula writes about identity, Native American issues, travel, and powwows from her home in Austin, Texas. She has an MFA in creative nonfiction from the Institute of American Indian Arts and a master's degree in economics from Western Illinois University. Ursula is a member of the Karuk tribe, and her work has appeared in Yellow Medicine Review, World Literature Today, O Dark 30, and the Rio Review. In April of 2021, Heyday Books in Berkeley, California will be publishing her memoir, An Indian Among Los Indian, oh, I didn't say that right, Indigenous. There we go. Please welcome Ursula Pike.
Hey.
And finally, last but not least, we have Richard Z Santos. Richard is a writer and teacher in Austin. His debut novel, Trust Me, was published in March of 2020. He's a board member of the National Book Critics Circle and has served as one of 2019 nonfiction judges for the Kirkus Prize. Recent work can be found in Texas Monthly, Ost Press, Kirkus Reviews, Crime Reads, and many more. In a previous career, he worked for some of the nation's top political campaigns, consulting firms, and labor unions. Please welcome Richard Santos.
Hey.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with Jedah Mayberry.
Thank you both. I was hoping to kind of share with Bernice firsthand, but I've been traipsing behind her for a number of years now. I found my way to Jacaranda Books, where Sun is Sky is, based on the Book of Harlan. I think she had the UK rights published by Jacaranda, and I followed her to Akashic. Had there's a sci-fi piece that I return to, The Meek, anytime I'm kind of in between projects. And I found my way that the intro to that piece was published on Akashic's sci-fi series a couple of years back. What I'm going to read is the follow-on to that piece. And by way of introduction, this is kind of what I write. Similar to Jacob, I've got a protagonist that is, into her first year or so of middle school, if she were still going to school. And I tend to pair, my protagonist with a grandmother or a grandfather to help guide them through the world. So this is a portion of The Meek called The Colors of Skin. I apologize, we're pup setting and pup is a little anxious, so you'll hear a little noise here. But The Colors of Skin. Boys Latin of Philadelphia has been appropriated as a temporary long-term shelter, meant to house those displaced by repleted floodwaters stemming outward from University City. We have lived here approaching 3 years. I asked my Momar what is meant by temporary long-term. It's a contradiction of terms, Momar explains, intent at every turn on offering instruction about the forces at work to reshape our world. Long-term means the place is not bound to float away. Temporary means the government officials will let us know once time comes to move again. It is the beginning of another day. A series of soft chimes signals the start of breakfast service. Lucite panels lining the walls flicker in unison, reporting the news as we fall in line with the procession making its way toward the dining hall. The shift in seasonal weather patterns continues to escalate at an alarming pace. Today is the 20th day this year to see the temperature reach triple digits, and it's not yet May. The UV index will again top 9 by mid-afternoon. Anyone with an active melanoma is advised to avoid any outdoor exposure. The newscaster seems to lament having to again deliver such a dismal forecast. His on-air makeup reveals a faint shadow on one cheek, evidence of a spot of cancer still in the midst of healing. His eyes take a self-conscious downward tilt in the direction of the shadow each time he pauses in search of his next string of words. Anyone who has suffered a melanoma fears that a second or third will appear. Anyone who has not yet endured a bout with skin cancer knows with near certainty that his or her turn is fast approaching. There goes Mother Nature with her cruel sense of humor. The conversation that persists between Momar and me resumes as it does every morning. She rattles on as though talking to herself, only she doesn't mind if I overhear, and I stay glued to her hip, not wanting to miss a word of what she has to say. One pocket of the country is on fire. The other is drowning in an overflowing sea swell. Meanwhile, Philly is left to bake in the sun. Momar observes. It won't be long before the storms again take hold, stretching the bend of the river flat across everything in reach. It's all too much, wouldn't you say? She peers up at the ceiling, suggesting as I suspect that her question has not been directed my way. Momar is my grandmother. She adopted the name, Mother of Marlene, so I would not for a second be left to wonder where I belong in the world. It has been the two of us together since I was old enough to have memories. Aside from the select few stories she chooses to share with me, I have no recollection of my mother, my father. My Momar is the only family I know. This land of ours, I tell you, is going to burn or broil or slide in one elongated gasp into the sea. She talks to me like I'm a grown-up. Like any of what is going on in the world affects me. In time it will, Giselle, she assures me. In time it will. I no longer attend school. Momar is my school. She is my principal, my teacher. She's the kind cafeteria lady who used to slip me extra fruit gummy snacks, a second container of coconut water anytime she caught me smiling her way. I look like my Momar, or so it seems to me that I do. I look like the cafeteria lady too. Her skin tone like mine, too rich to go by any ordinary name. Onyx, obsidian, ebony, sable. Those are the colors of her skin. They are the colors of my skin too. Why is your skin so dark? Juniper Watkins wants to know. It is the question she asked off and on since the two of us started 4th grade together. Mother Nature finally came around to coloring with her best ink. Didn't leave any despair when she got to coloring my skin, I answer. Momar's words guiding my tongue. My complexion, like yours, means I need not fear the sun. I know all about the benefits of melanin in our skin, Juniper replies, her head cocked, her hands waving in front of me. But you're some midnight, sheen of a crow's feather black, like you're no kin to me. She spat the word black, like she couldn't wait to rid her tongue of the taste the word made inside her mouth. I fidgeted with the tails of the red satin sash, cinched tightly around my waist, touched a finger to the matching ribbon fastened to pull my hair into a giant snarled puff. I only wish you knew, I told her. Your skin doesn't have to look like my skin for us to be kin. I cast a pitying glance in her direction the way Momar had pantomimed each time we practiced how she'd have me respond whenever someone had something to say about the color of my skin. The sun is a powerful thing, which makes me by association a powerful thing too. I left Juniper with a puzzled look on her face, the meaning behind Momar's words beyond her grasp. Juniper Watkins is the part of going to school that I have missed the least. And that is The Colors of Skin, part of the Meek.
Wow. We got all these amazing writers here today. Wow. So next up, we have Jennifer Hritz.
Hi there. I would like to start out by saying that I am a straight, cisgender woman writing from the perspective of gay men. And that's why I'm on this diversity panel. It's unusual for me to be here under those circumstances. I'm very aware that I'm writing from a perspective that is not my own. And at the same time, I've been writing from this perspective for years, decades really. Easily half of my audience is gay men, and I feel I feel like my writing is so sacred to me, and I feel such a profound humility for my characters. And I'm just really honored to be included in the conversation today and to have the opportunity to give voice to these particular characters in this moment. So thank you for including me. I have this whole fictional world, and every short story and every novel that I write are from this, they center around this one world, particularly this one man named Joel Grayson. And as I was trying to decide what to read for y'all today, I was really struggling a bit because my third novel, Smoke and Glass, just came out yesterday. And my fourth novel, thank you, I'm very excited about it, so excited. And so I'm halfway through my fourth novel, which is the fourth in my series. And there's an event that happens at the beginning of that novel that's big, and it changes everything. And I am trying to figure out a way to read something that's not going to be such a spoiler that it won't be detrimental. So I finally landed on something. And this novel is told in two different perspectives. And one of the perspectives, one of the narrators is James. And James is Joel's college roommate and best friend. And in this scene, it's November of 2009, and James is a classics professor at the University of Chicago. And he has a 3.5-year-old son, Henry, who is struggling a little bit with preschool. So I'm going to read this little scene. And give me just a moment to get into James's voice. He's very different from my other characters. And he has a twang, and I can't explain it. So you'll just have to accept it. Okay. The students in my Greek and Roman mythology seminar are meeting with me to talk about their paper topics. And when I get to my office, I find the first one sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, waiting on me. I guess I'm late, but I don't apologize. Instead, I wave him inside and sit down, sucking on my coffee. My student, his name's Andrew, isn't one of my favorites, and he reminds me why when he tells me he wants to talk about his last exam. I know without pulling up his grade that he failed, but I go through the motions anyway. Sure enough, he got a 52. Whatever, I know my class has a reputation for being challenging, and I know it's better suited for sophomores, but Andrew walked into my office the first week of school and told me he could take it. If you're reading the material, I start now, but he interrupts me. I want extra credit, he says. I don't even give extra credit to my best students, I tell him, and he gives me a look like, why you want to insult me? I never miss class, he protests. Then you're doing something wrong, I inform him, because if you're in there and you're paying attention, you should know that the Odyssey doesn't have anything to do with NASA. He kills his smirk, but not before I see it. Man, I do not have the patience for this today. I gaze across my desk at him. He looks like half the guys in my fraternity, the one I pledged my freshman year at UT, then quit a few weeks after Joel's mom died. Haircut, crisp and clean, wardrobe by Ralph Lauren. I shake myself from the past. Let's see how you do on your paper, I say, and then we'll see. Yeah, I don't have a topic yet, man, he reminds me, and I bristle at his informality. I didn't drag my ass through 8 years of school to put up with one of my undergrads calling me man. It's Dr. Fielding, I say. Let's talk paper topics. We haven't gotten very far when my cell phone rings. That's Henry's preschool, and I excuse myself and answer the call, bracing myself to hear that they've gone through 2 changes of clothes, and if my 3.5-year-old son can't quit having accidents, they're kicking him out. Man, if I hear the phrase biting rampage, I'm gonna lose my mind. Dr. Fielding, the preschool's director says, and cold sweeps through me like someone just opened the window wide. Yeah, I say. Dr. Fielding, she says, Henry's missing. That's all today.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Jedah. You guys are doing, once again, just so much amazing work. I'm about to turn my accounting degree into an ACC creative writing class, Charlotte.
Bring it.
So next up, we have Ursula Pike.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Hopeton and KAZI and ACC, and thanks to all the other authors. I am honored to be here with you. So when I travel, I love to experience the unique things about a country and a culture and to do things that I'd never be able to do at home. But because I've seen some really insensitive and offensive behavior by non-natives at powwows and other Native cultural events, I recognize that a traveler searching for an authentic experience or entertainment has to be self-aware. So this is the beginning of an essay exploring that issue. It's about a ceremony I witnessed in Bolivia in South America called Tinku. I grew up in a house with stacks of National Geographic magazines. My sister's dad collected them, and whenever I was bored or the TV was broken, I skimmed through the bright pictures of Black and brown people in colorful regalia. The pictures allowed me to imagine a world completely different from the aging duplex we rented on Portland's industrial east side. Many years later, I was standing on a corner in the small town of Macha, high in the Bolivian Andes, watching an indigenous man punch another in the face while a police officer protected a crowd of tourists. When the Bolivian man's fist made contact with skin, 20 cameras clicked. I'm in the middle of a National Geographic magazine picture, I thought, uncomfortably. This was Tinku, a Quechua Indian fighting ritual that occurs once a year in Macha and other small communities in Western Bolivia. It was partly a performance, but the men were really fighting and kept swinging until someone bled or fell down. Next to the men, a woman squeezed the leather whip she had hit them with a few minutes earlier, agitating them into a frenzy to prepare for the fight. In the villages outside of Macha, away from the tourists, there were other Tinkus that were less about performing culture and more about solving community grievances. I didn't turn away from the men. I was curious, but also embarrassed that I wanted to see them fight. Why did I feel uncomfortable watching the men pummel each other? Tinku was a spectacle, a tourist attraction. Westerners hired guides to explain what was happening, and Macha's Tinku was listed as a must-see, right behind the salt desert and wrestling cholitas. This is why people travel, and why I travel, to see how others live and capture images of dramatic events for keepsakes. Watching Black and brown bodies perform cultural rituals for entertainment and enrichment is a time-honored activity. In Northern California, there was a lodge for hunters across from the spot where my tribe, the Keruks, performed a traditional dance called the brush dance. The guests at the lodge sat on the porch and watched the ceremony. They weren't invited or given permission to witness a dance that had been performed on that spot long before the lodge was built. But that's what they did. Did the lodge owner promote the opportunity to see a real Indian ceremony? Watching the Tinku in Macha that day wasn't the same as those hunters at the lodge. I understood that the fighting could be both something I, as a tourist, consumed and enjoyed, as well as a meaningful ritual for the Quechua Indians. Mixing together commerce and culture is messy and can be problematic. It's good that I felt uncomfortable, that I asked myself to consider what I was doing that afternoon in Macha. Was anyone else there also asking themselves that question? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ursula. And last, we have Richard Z Santos.
Thank you, Hopeton, and Charlotte and Dion and all the authors today. It's an honor to be here. My debut novel came out in March, but I'm gonna read from my second novel in progress. It's called Every Family is a Conspiracy Theory. And the novel is set 2 weeks or so after a mysterious person dumps terabytes of data on the web, unveiling the big conspiracy. So everything from Presidents to stock markets to hit movies to MTV Music Awards are selected by a group of people in an office building in Topeka who go by the names of the Global Strategy Group. So the nation has fallen into turmoil, but 2 weeks later, normalcy is starting to reassert itself. Our two main characters are Max and Isabel Rodriguez, whose mother disappeared just before the big revelation. Isabel is mourning her mom and trying to find her, but Max finds some clues and starts to think that their mom might have been the person who unmasked the conspiracy. But Max has a history of paranoia and doesn't always see things very clearly, so Isabel doesn't know whether or not she believes him. And this is from the beginning of the novel, right after he's seen a video that has him wondering if something else is going on. Izzy's apartment had become the unofficial headquarters of the Find Gloria Rodriguez effort, which consisted entirely of Max, Izzy, and her two kids. The cops weren't interested in devoting their few remaining resources to finding a random 60-something-year-old Latina. Max opened the apartment door and advanced on Izzy with his phone raised in front of him. Izzy held up a finger to slow Max down. She was always on the phone, always on hold, and cycling through the area's hospitals, morgues, and homeless shelters. "I need a phone charger," Max whispered. She pointed towards a desk. They're always in the same place. The desk in the corner of the living room was covered in missing posters, old newspapers, and photos of their mother. A map of Austin had been stapled onto the wall. She'd planned on pinning any sightings or clues, but had so far only pinned the university and her mother's house north of campus. And not because people had recently spotted her mother there, but because those were the last places for the past 2 months where anyone had seen her. No one at a grocery store, gas station, restaurant, anywhere seemed to have any memory of Gloria Rodriguez. Yes, I'm still here. My mom's name is Gloria, but you're also going to check for any new Jane Does. Hello? Izzy glared at her phone as if it had bitten her. That little gnome hung up on me. "Are Katie and Jer here?" Max asked. "Don't call them that, and not yet. Their dad's dropping them off this afternoon." She finally looked up at Max. He was out of breath and sweat stains dappled his shirt. "Where have you been?" "Come here," Max says. "Have you seen this latest video? You were only supposed to be gone a few minutes. It's been 3 hours. She saw the wrinkled papers in her hands. "You didn't even put up all the posters." Max looked at his hand like he had forgotten it was holding something. "There's no room, and I needed tape. There's a whole city out there. Just throw them in the air and let the wind take them. They won't do any good here." Max turned his phone on and waved her over. "Have you seen this video?" "No, I haven't. I've been trying to find our mother. I don't have time for a new video on what Jennifer Lawrence's real name is. I really liked her movie." Max ran his hands up and down his face. "That's the hardest part, really. Now we don't even know." Isabel sat down across from him and put her hands over his, containing the phone in their grasp. "I need you to be with me. I need you to take a breath. Can you do that right now? Can you take a breath with me?" Max tried to blink his eyes back to normal. "If I take a breath, will you watch this video? I won't even talk. You watch. 2 minutes. It's from the news, actual news, real news. And then we're going to get you some food and water, and we'll try these posters again." Max nodded. "With tape, maybe duct tape." "All the tape you need. Now, breathe in." Max closed his eyes and breathed. Somewhere along the way, some childhood doctor had shown them this. Isabel and Max had been holding hands and closing eyes and breathing for years. Sometimes it even worked. "Okay," Max said. He pulled up the video. He wasn't calm, but he was trying to slow down and fake it, or she'd never listen to him. "We're starting tonight with a revelation that could prove key to understanding why all this information about the Global Strategy Group is coming to light." The news video, showed the same boardroom where the GSG always met. Station graphics made the 9th point clear. Who is the 9th woman? And then the clip of the meeting froze and was blown up until a ring filled most of the screen. A blue and white evil eye on a hand the exact same pecan color as Max's own. Isabel sat back and looked at Max. "Are you kidding me? You saw the ring. I bought her that ring. They sell millions of those a year. How much was it? 10 euros? It's the same size, and she wore it on her left hand." Isabel shook her head and looked at the floor. "I can't. Look, you need to help me out here." Max held up the phone. "No," she said. "No, you need to focus and you need to help me. We should be knocking on doors. We should be going back to the people she worked with. Are you taking your..." Max turned his back to her and walked towards the windows. "Watch the video again. It's a woman's hand. The skin color is right, and they don't know who is in charge of this area. You've gotten lost in stuff like this before. This is different. Look at it." He offered the phone again. "Laura Lee Lincoln," Isabel said. Max stiffened. You're not supposed to bring that up. That was nearly 2 years ago. I'm fine now. Izzy nodded again. She'd been nodding at Max for years. Theories about their father's death 20 years ago, nods and nods. Theories about their teachers, nods and nods. Theories about YouTube stars, nods and nods and nods. And I think I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. All right, let's give the entire panel another round of quiet or mute off applause.